Okay, hello everybody. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you so much for joining the Critical Issues Forum Spring Conference from around the world. My name is Masako Toki, and I'm the project manager of the Critical Issues Forum at the James Martin Center for Nonproliferation Studies. I want to express my most sincere appreciation to each one of you who worked very hard for this year's Critical Issues Forum, and those who supported the important youth disarmament education program. While we are still meeting virtually this year, we are gradually transitioning to more in-person activities. We hope that this virtual conference will serve as an impetus to enhance more active engagement in future disarmament education activities for high school students. As this year's CIF topic, bringing intersectional approaches to youth education for nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation indicates the challenge of nuclear weapons cannot be separated from other global and social challenges because the threat of nuclear weapons is multifaceted. Therefore, it is important to find solutions to nuclear challenges by taking intersectional approaches. Today, nuclear threats are at the highest level since the end of the Cold War. To tackle such challenges, it is essential to engage youth with creative and innovative ideas. By discussing nuclear weapon challenges from multiple perspectives, we aspire to raise more awareness of nuclear issues among young people and increase students' interest in this topic. The goals of a Critical Issues Forum include to help students appreciate different national and cultural perspectives on complex international security issues and contribute to international peace and security, disarmament and non-proliferation, and other social justice endeavors while developing their critical thinking and intercultural communication skills. This year, we have 7 American high schools and 5 Japanese schools, including 3 new American schools. We are thrilled to have a diverse group of high school students for this year's project. I'm also excited to welcome the keynote speaker, Dr. Togzhan Kassenova, to discuss the continued legacy of Soviet nuclear tests in Kazakhstan, her country of origin. In the midst of a heightened nuclear threat, understanding the catastrophic humanitarian consequences of the use of nuclear weapons is essential, especially for young people. I also wanted to emphasize the importance of developing empathy to understand the suffering of others when we study nuclear disarmament. During today's conference, I hope you learn from each other and develop and foster long-lasting friendships with other CIF participants from around the world. CIF activities cannot be possible without generous support from our donors and friends. I'd like to express our sincere appreciation to the Tom and Sarah Pattison Fund, the Saga Foundation, the Catherine Washmore Davis Collaborative in Conflict Transformation Fund, Mr. Greg Warpert, and many generous private donors. I trust that the students who participated in this conference will continue to forge ahead toward a safer and more secure world free of nuclear weapons. Thank you so much. So now I'm very happy to welcome Mr. and Mrs. Pattison, Sarah and Tom Pattison, who has been supporting our centers and many education projects for many, many years. So I would like to give a floor to Sarah and Tom to give a congratulatory remarks. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Masako, and really students, teachers, you are really fortunate to be able to deal with these very, very complex, difficult issues. And like Masako says, they're intersectional with all these other major world issues. And really, I know it's a lot of work for high school teachers, all your dedication, and the students also. And the skills you learned today, of course, on this very important issue, but they'll also be valuable for you in all of your research work or your professional career as you move forward. I just want to reflect back pre-COVID, when we were able to meet in person, we were also able to meet with Russian students. And of course, the world has evolved and changed in such a way that because of the tremendous suffering and conflict, that can't happen. So it truly is a very, very precious thing for people to be able to meet across international boundaries. And when you do get the chance to come to Monterey for a future conference, please do so. And I want to thank the hardest working person we know, that's Masako. So thank you for the wonderful afternoon and congratulations.
And then I just want to add, thank everybody for, dealing with a subject that is depressing, but we have to deal with it because we can't nuclear with nuclear, or we can't afford to make a mistake about it. And the clock is going the wrong direction here.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah and Tom. I really can't thank enough both of you. Thank you so much. So now we are moving to the panel discussion. So this year we have a current students panelist and a CIF alumni panelist. And I'm going to give a floor to Ms. Monalisa Hazarika, who agreed to moderate this panel discussion all the way from India. And you can find her bio on the booklet. But just very briefly, Monalisa has been involved in the United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs Youth for Disarmament Initiative, and among other things. And she's also a full-time graduate student. So she's really very busy. So I really appreciate that she's supporting the Critical Issues Forum. And I wanted to say just a few words about her. So she reached out to me for her disarmament education project titled Across the Chicken Neck. And I encourage you to check it out. And I had an honor to be one of the speakers for her project. And through my experience working with her, I was just so impressed and inspired by her dedication and commitment to nuclear disarmament. So I decided to engage her to this year's conference in one way or another. So yeah, so Monalisa, thank you so much. And now floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Toki, for your very warm welcome. Greetings, everyone. My name is Monalisa Hazarika, and I'm a master's student joining from India. Today, I'm representing the Leaders for Tomorrow and Leaders to Future cohorts of the United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs Youth for Disarmament Initiative, and will be your moderator for this evening. Many thanks for joining us today as we explore the interconnected components of nuclear issues and bring more youth voices to nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation discussions. We are excited to have the current Critical Issues Forum students who will be talking us about their projects and initiatives on this year's theme, bringing intersectional approaches to youth education for nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation, and also a diverse batch of alumni who will be sharing their experiences as previous cohorts. So joining us today for the current students panel are Dawson Bray from Monterey High School, California, Sarah Dancevic from Julia R. Masterman Laboratory and Demonstration Schools from Philadelphia. We have Luke Callahan from Shoete Rosemary Hall at Wallingford. We also have Hiyori Kobayashi from Nagasaki Higashi Senior High School at Nagasaki, Japan, and also Sakura Mitsuzuka from Kansai Soka Senior High School at Osaka, Japan. Please note that each speaker is allotted 3 minutes to talk briefly about their project experiences and also the key takeaways from this initiative. With this, I now pass the floor to Dawson. Dawson, over to you.
Thank you so much. It is truly an honor to address you all today on the topic of nuclear disarmament. This year, we found ourselves at a critical juncture in human history, one in which I believe that we have the opportunity to pivot towards a more peaceful and just future. I'm proud to be a part of this community and a generation that is committed to learning about and taking action on this critical issue. To me, nuclear nonproliferation is to build a bridge between the powers of hatred and distrust ingrained in our society to a world of hope and courage where decisions are made by dialogue and diplomacy. The question that we have to answer is, how do we build this bridge? We know that the journey starts with educating ourselves and our community about the dangers of nuclear weapons, the histories of nuclear testing, and the impact of nuclear weapons on the environment and human health. We need to teach young people about the value of peace. We also know that we need to engage people with kindness and respect, listening to the perspectives of others and discovering common ground. We know ultimately that we need to take action. At Monterey High School, we've been advocating for nuclear disarmament on multiple levels, and we hope to create a powerful movement across our local community, our district, and ultimately the state and country. We're forming an interdisciplinary curriculum to be implemented over the coming year, and we'll be constructing a mosaic mural for our school campus. Critical Issues Forum has provided us with the valuable opportunity to promote nuclear disarmament. But we must remember that to build a bridge also requires time, effort, and resources. Our generation has the power to make this vision a reality if we seize the opportunity and take the time and effort to work together to build a safer and more peaceful world for us all. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to today's discussions.
Luke, over to you.
Okay, sweet. Hello, everyone. It's a great honor to be here. I'm really excited to learn from everyone today. I just wanted to share a little bit about my project with my partner, Dylan. So under the guidance of our mentor, JD, who has a vast knowledge in international relations and philosophy, we worked on a research project to kind of understand the modern playing field for nonproliferation efforts in regards to current political and scientific evolutions that have been occurring over the last 60 or so years, such as recent developments in quantum computing that are reinventing the idea of national security as a whole, and the effect of increasing nationalist sentiments across many nations. So we used kind of an intersectional approach to integrate science and culture, eventually to reach a conclusion about what may be the next step in domestic and foreign policy for nuclear nonproliferation. One of the most valuable experiences of our project was when JD, our mentor, gave us the opportunity to speak to a Hiroshima bomb survivor, which provided an immensely valuable human perspective for me. And that was truly a remarkable experience to get to learn from her. So yeah, it's a little bit about our project.
Thank you, Luke. I will now pass the floor to Hiyori.
Okay, so
Please
here
go ahead.
she is. Yeah.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm starting. We Nagasaki Higashi High Schools participated in CIF conference last year, and that time is very valuable for us. And what impressed us the most was the discussion with the student. As you all know, Nagasaki is the last city where the atomic bomb was dropped. So it was very precious for us who have been in Nagasaki to have a dialogue about peace with high school. Oh my God. Peace to dialogue, have a dialogue about peace with high school students from all over the world, who are from different positions and have different values. What I have realized through the dialogue is that even though we are different countries, we share the same feeling toward nuclear operations and the same desire for peace. I also learned that the younger generation, like us, have an important role to play in passing the baton of peace to the next generation. And it is not often that I have the opportunity to talk about peace with high school students from other countries. So I was very stimulated and surprised at the level of interest in the topic from other countries. It also made us realize that young people in Nagasaki, the atomic bomb city of Japan, need to be more proactive in communicating their thoughts on peace. In July of this year, Nagasaki Higashi High School will hold the International Peace Conference for high school students in Nagasaki to discuss global issues with high school students from Japan and abroad as an opportunity to communicate and recreating the Declaration of Peace and for this conference and conducting peace exploration, such as connecting Hawaii, where the Pacific War began, and Nagasaki, where it ended. Through this effort, we would like to expand the cycle of peace from Nagasaki, the atomic bomb city, to the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Hiyori, for your brief speech. I would now like to pass the floor to Sakura.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
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 Okay. First of all, thank you so much for inviting us. I am very grateful that I could take part in such a valuable opportunity. At first, I only know vaguely about nuclear weapons. I knew it was problematic, but I didn't know enough to determine who was on the right or wrong side. In Japan, every August, a minute of silent prayer will be held by all the citizens at precisely 8:45 a.m. There is a live broadcast on all the major media networks to commemorate this day. I believe this moment is not only to pray for the 140,000 lives lost in Hiroshima. I haven't given much thought to this ceremony until I joined the CIF. As I thought deeply, the fact that nuclear weapons are made and used by humans struck me that it was impermissible to not be aware of them. I felt that as a global citizen, I have a responsibility to not be aware of them, to stand up to say no to nuclear weapons for my future and those beyond me. It was evident during this CIF that there is still so much to be done in order to achieve nuclear disarmament. As I gained more information and understanding, I sometimes felt helpless. Everything seems hopeless. However, through discussion with my partner and my teachers, I came to realize that nothing is impossible. We thought of many ways to approach this complex problem. Our presentation focused on raising youth awareness of nuclear disarmament through movies as an effective means to influence people to realize the detrimental events of nuclear weapons. During this spring vacation, my partner and I decided on our topic together. My partner Miki lives in Osaka, and I live in Miyagi Prefecture, which is miles apart. It was quite challenging because we could only communicate over the internet, but it was the most valuable time I had. We had a lot of fun discussing and collaborating on information to create one presentation. I found it fascinating to explore things without knowing where they might lead us. There were times when we had no idea where to start. Nevertheless, as we discussed each day, we became more informed of current challenges in nuclear disarmament. This made me very excited to be a part of the bigger community. Today, we gathered to learn more about each other and nuclear disarmament. Let's take this opportunity to reflect on what I take for granted every day. A moment of silence to remember and pray in whatever manner you believe in for the 140,000 lives lost in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. If you don't mind, could everybody close your do you have time to close your eyes for about 30 seconds? I think it will be like a very great moment to connect. So could you please close your eyes right now? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Sakura. I would now like to pass the floor back to Sarah, who we missed out for a while. Sarah, over to you.
Hello. Okay, so I'm Sarah. I'm from Julia or Masterman. I'm in 10th grade, and my CIF project was called Where People Become Playthings, the intersection of colonialism and nuclear testing. It was basically a documentary about France's nuclear testing and how that interacted with their colonialism in the past, and the injustice that had like occurred because of that. And I think the most important thing to me, like the thing that stuck out to me most about the CIF project, was how little knowledge I had before the CIF project about this topic. It's an incredibly important issue, and just nuclear nonproliferation in general is really a huge topic, and it's especially prevalent in our modern day. So the fact that I hadn't even talked about it much in school or learned much about it in my life, and I was very ignorant before the CIF project, was really astonishing to me. When I started the CIF project, I didn't really have all that much knowledge about nuclear nonproliferation or what it was. And going through the project, I learned so much about it. And hearing the other panelists speak has also, like just now, I think this is a common theme of the CIF project really being an instigator for learning about topics that aren't necessarily discussed in classrooms all that much, but are still incredibly important. I was talking to my friend Brysanea, and she basically said the exact same thing. She worked on the CIF project with me, and she again said, before the CIF project, she didn't know anything about France's nuclear testing. I had never even considered it in my life, but once we had done it, we were both really invested about this issue, and it kind of, it allowed us to create this sort of sense of knowledge that we hadn't had before because of it just hadn't been brought up in our classrooms. And the CIF project really created an opportunity for us to learn about nuclear nonproliferation and all of the nuances to this incredibly difficult topic. And it pushed us forward into exploring more about these topics. And I think that's what CIF is really about. It's about going beyond what you're taught in school, what you're taught at home in your normal life, and pushing yourself to really involve yourself in these incredibly important issues that just kind of go overlooked in our normal lives. That's what I gained a lot from the CIF project, and I think that everyone involved with it can at least resonate with that on some level. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Sarah. And yeah, thank you all the panelists for your brief yet inspiring interventions. It was truly encouraging to see the passion to build a nuclear-free world among the next generation of global leaders. We now move on to the Q&A round. If I could have all the panelists, yes, that'll be great. Thank you. So yeah, my first question to the panelists is, what was the most enjoyable part of the CIF project?
Okay, I'll talk. I would say the most enjoyable part of the CIF project for me was really just the research and seeing how much I didn't know. Like I'm a person that always loves to be learning new things, and participating in CIF really changed my perspective on how much I knew about important issues, and being able to do research about these topics and feel like I was learning things and making connections that I hadn't made before, that was a really enjoyable thing for me. And I thought it was great.
Thank you, Sarah. Would anybody else like to go next?
I would be happy to share. So for our school, we were focused on developing policy briefs primarily and petitioned our school's administration and principal. For me, that was one of the most exciting parts of the project, was to see all of our work actually come to fruition in our discussion with our school's staff. We also were able to interview some staff from different departments to get their perspectives on the issue. And the consensus that we found between all of our school's staff and administration was, I think, something that was really powerful for the students involved with it. And we look forward to being able to move forward with our project now.
Thank you, Dawson. I remember Luke raised your hand. Would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. This is kind of on the smaller scale, but similar to what Sarah was saying, I found the research process to be really enjoyable and inspiring, particularly because with such a grim and intimidating issue, potentially like threatening humanity as a whole, it was fascinating to me, at least, to see that there have been for the last 70 years and up until today, there are people out there who are doing remarkable things and are going completely against the grain in the name of helping efforts for non-proliferation, whether that be through their research or their activism. There's some really remarkable things being done out there, despite what it may seem like given the current climate we face.
Thank you, Luke. We will now move on to the next question, which is, how can we engage more high school students in nuclear disarmament discussions and activities? Yes, Luke, please go ahead.
Something me and my mentor often discussed in our project was this issue of like, how do we build a generation of people ready to confront this problem that we're going to face? And one of the solutions we thought of immediately was potentially developing more sophisticated and prevalent exchange programs for students from the US and Japan and Russia and other countries to get access to these kind of perspectives that, like mentioned before, are not always taught in school. And I think that's important both to help students grasp the significance of what we're facing here, as well as to build the foundations for the next generation of the people behind creating foreign policy and a new international cooperation.
Indeed, Luke. Thank you for that. Next, we have Hiyori. Please go ahead.
Thank you. And I'll talk to you with the camera off because my camera's condition is bad. Okay.
No problem.
Thank you. I think most high school students today are aware of the current nuclear situation in the world. I believe that ignorance is the primary factor. Ignorance is the primary factor preventing the realization of peace in the world. Therefore, I think it is important to inform high school students about the current conflict and serious nuclear situation, and to create an opportunity for them to become interested in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Hiyori. Maybe we could take one last question very quickly. What has been one of the most challenging aspects of the CIF project, and how did you overcome it? Yeah, this may take a while to maybe reflect, but yes, Dawson, please go ahead.
I think at Monterey High School, the thing that we came across first was that we were starting from scratch. None of us had prior experience with the subject matter, and it is a very difficult and complex issue to confront. So for us, being able to learn about that and address it didn't feel feasible from the start. It's not like other parts of conservation where you can stop using single-use plastics. There's no daily action that you can really take in that manner with nuclear disarmament. So that was our first roadblock. And I think the way that we settled on overcoming that was conversation, really being able to spark that conversation we felt was that first step. And that's how we ultimately landed on our project with the mural. We think that art is one of those very powerful ways that we can connect with other people and bring them into an issue that otherwise might be very vulnerable and complex.
Thank you, Dawson. Do we have any other answers to that question? Or yes, Sarah, please go ahead.
I definitely agree with what Dawson was saying. I think as such a complex issue, it's really difficult to speak about nuclear weaponry as a general topic. It's really hard to even like think about or consider the possibility of. But for me, what I found most challenging was definitely trying to create an action plan. Like you were saying, Dawson, my project was a documentary, and it was kind of, it was difficult because we wanted to highlight the injustice that had come from a result of this nuclear testing that France had done. But on such a large scale issue, it's really difficult to find a way that just a few people can make a difference or make an impact. And so what we landed on was really just it was a call to action for governments or people who do have more impact. As students, it can feel like we don't have that much of a voice, or we don't have the ability to make change. And I think part of our role is to be the people that call on others to make change. So that was probably really challenging. Was the most challenging part for us was to find a way to create that call to action in a way that would be effective and make our stance clear.
Thank you, Sarah. Would anybody else like to go next, or should we move on with the next panel? Do I see any hands? Would anybody like to share their experiences? Okay, no for that. Well, thank you all the panelists for their continued participation and for sharing their very inspiring projects. Moving on, I would now like to invite the alumni of the Critical Issues Forum to share their experiences as previous cohorts of this initiative. Joining us from across the globe are Lucia Madero Murillo. She is a STEM MBA student at the University of Minnesota and a 2015 CIF alumni. We also have Shizuka Kuramitsu, who is a master's candidate for Nonproliferation and Terrorism Studies at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey, and a current graduate professional at the Weapons of Mass Destruction program at UNIDIR, and a 2015 CIF alumni. Next up, we have Shunzi Fuiki, who is a 2016 CIF alumni and a second year JD student at Georgetown University Law Center. Next, we have Christopher Cruz, who is a 2017 CIF alumni from Alliance Dr. Olga Mohan High School and a current intern at N Square. We also have Kokoro Nishiyama, who is a Middlebury Institute of International Studies, Nonproliferation and Terrorism Studies student and a 2017 CIF alumni. And finally, we also have Saloni Shah, who is a sophomore at Stanford University, majoring in computational biology, and a 2016-2021 CIF alumni from Harker School. Thank you all the speakers for joining us today. And I now pass the floor to Lucia.
Thank you so much. So my name is Lucia Madero. I'm currently finishing, as was mentioned, my STEM MBA at the University of Minnesota. And I just wanted to say, first off, it's wonderful to see some familiar faces, Masako, of course, but also Mr. Davidson, who went with me in 2015. So I had the opportunity to attend the Critical Issues Forum conference in 2015, representing Choate Rosemary Hall, where we presented on nuclear disarmament from a humanitarian perspective. And prior to this, I had little to no knowledge of any disarmament or nonproliferation issues. Going to Japan that year, specifically Hiroshima, and hearing from the Hibakusha, as well as learning from my fellow peers, one of whom I'm actually lucky enough to share the panel with, was completely inspiring. I came back to the States energized and wanting to amplify the voices of youth in the field. That same year, I attended the summer school for Nonproliferation and Disarmament in Mexico City, getting the chance to meet diplomats from all over Latin America and the Caribbean. I later had the honor of attending the 6th Global Citizens Assembly for the elimination of nuclear weapons in Nagasaki, again, guided by Masako's leadership. We were just commenting on how she's seen me kind of live through this process. More recently, I've been a CTBTO CNS fellow, which is the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty and Center for Energy and Security Studies. I've presented at the ISYP International Student Young Pugwash 3rd Nuclear Age Conference in Berlin. Been a member of the Hiroshima ICANN Academy, ICANN being the International Campaign Against Nuclear Weapons. And I'm currently the Emerging Voices Network consultant for Latin America and the Caribbean, making policy recommendations for the upcoming UNMPT PrepCom. So Emerging Voices Network is a subgroup of BASIC, the British American Security Information Council, made up of early career researchers and policy experts. As a Mexican, I'm very proud of my region's involvement in disarmament affairs. The Treaty of Tlatelolco was the first nuclear weapons-free zone, and Mexico has been a leader in many recent and upcoming disarmament events. And so part of this journey is just wanting to continue to expand my knowledge of policy and disarmament events with the hope that more youth will join the cause and use their voices, that the next generation might be able to come up with ideas that will provide more safety in forms of compromise, and specifically that young generations of Latin Americans learn about the importance of the work our region is doing, because it should be a point of pride and motivation. But truly the catalyst for this entire 8-year journey at this point was CIF, and I'm incredibly thankful that I was given that opportunity.
Thank you, Lucia. I now pass the floor to Shizuka.
Thank you, Monalisa. Greetings, everyone. My name is Shizuka. Before I get to start, allow me to congratulate the CIF team and all the participants for making this conference happen. As an alumni, as well as the former CIF team last year, I am very delighted to join. And thank you for having me today. Today, I would like to briefly talk about my CIF experience and how it shaped where I am. I sincerely hope students participating today remember the important value of your interests as well as the efforts that you made for the CIF. I participated in the CIF representing Hiroshima Jogakuin back in 2015 as Lucia participated, and it was the first time when my high school hosted the CIF. During my high school, I was interested in social issues in general, more broadly, and such as poverty issues and immigrant issues in Japan. And this, of course, included nuclear issues and Hiroshima and Nagasaki history. So CIF was one of the activities that I was doing at that time. And I was not sure if that was the field that I would really like to pursue my career on. So if you're interested in other subjects now and there is something sparks your interest other than nuclear issues, I think it is wonderful. And I would highly recommend to try and learn and engage with what you're passionate about. Because if you don't like that subject, and I think it is totally fine, the fact that you tried and now knowing that you didn't like it, I believe it will become your asset. To summarize how CIF experience has impacted my career path, for me, it was about opening doors. Through CIF, I learned about nuclear disarmament and nonproliferation, of course, but also meeting and working with people through CIF was life-changing. As many students did, I worked with my peers, received guidance from my teachers, and met other participants. And Lucia is the person who told me what burrito was at that time. And CIF gave me opportunities to meet professionals and practitioners who are already in the field. So CIF really helped me discover my passion, and it made me want to contribute to this issue. And that's how this led me to go into where I am. So my current study and work, I am a master's student at Moderator Institute doing nonproliferation studies. And as well as now I am working at the United Nations Institute for Disarmament Research in Geneva in Switzerland as a full-time intern. On another vein, I had many fortunate opportunities in many places, and it is my intention to keep seeking for my own approach for disarmament. So my goal is to work for an organization for place that whose goal is nuclear disarmament. So to conclude, lessons that I learned from my hometown in Hiroshima and Hibakusha is that forgiveness and love is much powerful than hatred. And through CIF and many activities that I have been involved, it was very beneficial for me to realize that this is the value that I would like to emulate and practice in my life. So whether it is research, policymaking, or advocacy, through working for several organizations and multiple occasions taught me that there are many ways to envision disarmament in different ways. And I would like to encourage people to find their own way to contribute to the issue. Thank you. Back to you, Mona.
Thank you, Shizuka. I would now like to pass the floor to Shunzi.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
First of all, thanks so much, Toki-san, for inviting me. And nice to see some familiar faces, including Chris and Ishino Sensei. My name is Shunji. I grew up in Tokyo, Japan. I went to Soka Senior High School and then attended CIF 2016 and 17 as well. I came to the States for college, and now I'm at law school studying corporate law at Togzhan Law School. I'm going to talk about my CIF 2016 experience and also the impact that it had on my current study. So at CIF 2016, the theme was a global nuclear vulnerability. And we learned a lot about the nuclear mishaps, the possibility of accidental nuclear explosions. And we learned a lot of many occasions that the world came too close to having an accidental use of nuclear weapons. So throughout the conference, I learned that not only the use of nuclear weapons, but also the possession of nuclear weapons is a threat to humanity. The Dr. William Perry, the former Secretary of Defense of the US, came to us and delivered his speech. I was very impressed. I also remember that I was very, very inspired the student presentations from the States, Russia, and Japan. I was especially impressed by American students' presentations. They looked very sophisticated, very professional, very logical, and asked many questions during Q&A session. So after CIF coming back to Japan, I was very inspired to do my best and apply for college during college. The impact of CIF in my study. So right now I'm studying law, and especially business law, finance, investment, money. So seems not be directly related to nuclear weapon issues. But the first semester at college, the first week I have to pick courses, and I didn't know what to study. So I wish there was a course focusing on nuclear issues. Having joined CIF, it would have been an easy A for me if there was such a course. But I picked the international relations. I was interested in how countries deal with each other after studying nuclear issues at CIF. And then I got more interested in political science. And then I got interested in law. And now here I am studying a law school. So my advice to you all is, having gone through the CIF experience, you now have one very critical issue, nuclear issues, and you understand it deeply. So you keep digging deep, and you find something that is appealing to you, either education, politics, environmental studies, law. So I hope you learn a lot. You can utilize the experiences from CIF in your future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shunzi. I would now like to pass the floor to Christopher.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Christopher Alan Cruz Colorado, and I was a participant of the CIF program in 2017, where I had the opportunity to travel to Nagasaki, Japan, and meet the then executive secretary of the CTBTO, Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization, Dr. Lucina Zerbo, to talk about the CTBT. Before I go on with my life, I just want to say that it is humbling to be here. After like 6 years ago, I met Shunji. He gave me his contact card, and we were talking about like the student presentations and being on the other side to tell you about my work and my life in nuclear is it's rather humbling. So kudos to the CIF team for this. So I was born in El Salvador and was brought to the United States in 2003. So I just celebrated 20 years of living here. And when I was 16 years old, as part of my CIF project, I made my high school a nuclear weapons-free zone. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook and search nuke-free schools or nuclear-free schools. I'll put the website in a bit. And thanks to that and CIF, I've had the pleasure of traveling all across the world, Vienna, Nagasaki, Seoul, and Gyeongju to talk about youth engagement and nuclear policy. And I actually want to show you something really quick. There you go. There's proof of that. Currently, I work at N-Square, which is short for N-Square Collaborative. Thank you, Masako. And N-Square Collaborative is a sort of, we call it a skunkworks group, but what we do is we look for creative approaches to bringing awareness and promoting the reduction of the nuclear weapons threat. So some of the notable things we've done at N-Square is funding this. This is a balloon from Amnesia Atómica, which you could look up online as Artists Against the Bomb, which is a collaboration between the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists and ICAN, the International Campaign for the Abolition of Nuclear Weapons. It's a lot to take in, I know, but looking forward to hearing what you guys have got and looking forward to meeting everyone on here. Good on you guys.
Thank you, Christopher. I would now like to pass the floor to Kokoro.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So first, thank you so much, Toki Sensei, for giving me this kind of the precious opportunity today. So my name is Kokoro Nishiyama. I'm currently a master's degree student at Moderator Institute of International Studies at Montreal in California, and I'm in a department of Nonproliferation and Terrorism Studies. So basically, I learned about the threat of the weapon of mass destruction, such as nuclear weapons, and my academic curiosity is on the nuclear security issue in Northeast Asia and diverse peace education, depending on the countries and regions. So now I'm a student in the US who learned about the national security and nuclear issues, but I did not know about it and never think about a peace or war when I was a child until an elementary school student. So I was born in Fukuoka, which is the southeast part of Japan, and visited Nagasaki, the atomic bomb city, as a school trip when I was a sixth grade of the elementary school student. And I went to the Atomic Bomb Museum, and that moment changed my life. I can't forget what I saw in a museum even now. And from that moment, my journey toward peace started. And when I was a second grade of the junior high school student, I moved to Nagasaki and entered in the Kasui Junior and Senior High School and began to take the peace education as a school curriculum. And I participated in a Critical Issues Forum in 2017 in Nagasaki. That year, the theme was a CDBT and a nuclear non-proliferation disarmament. And that conference also changed my life in the two aspects. So the one, that was the first time for me to know about the Moderator Institute, where I'm in now. And the second, through the student presentation, I noticed that people from the United States and also the Russia have a profound knowledge and multiple perspectives on the nuclear issues. At that time, I tended to focus on the humanitarian side of the nuclear issues and did not know about a science or more like deeper side of the political one. So I thought that it is significant to learn about the different aspects of the nuclear issues if I really want to pursue my journey toward the peace. So now I'm still halfway of the journey toward the peace, but I think that I would step into the more advanced stage by becoming a Moderator student. So for my current peace activities beyond studying, I also work together with Toki Sensei for this year's CIF and also work together for the peace education in a long run way in Nagasaki. And also I work with a professor at the University of Tokyo in light of the modern method of passing the memory of war I use the digital archive to keep and record the hibakusha testimonies by associating with geographic information and trying to pass on the memories of the atomic bomb survivors to the next generation. So that's my kind of the short story of who I am and the Critical Issues Forum experience and the future plan a little. So in the end, I really appreciate through the Critical Issues Forum experience and also Toki Sensei for giving me the chance of continuing my path toward the peace. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kokoro. I would now like to pass the floor to Saloni.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm going to try and keep this short so that we have time for questions afterwards, but I'm Saloni and I am a sophomore at Stanford. I attended CIF from 2018 to 2021 with the Harker School and with Dr. Nelson, who's here today. Before joining CIF, as you know, a bunch of people have mentioned, my understanding of nuclear weapons was really limited to basically a few lines in my history textbook. But then at my first CIF conference in 2018, I really listened with horror, honestly, to the stories of the hibakusha, who spoke about gruesome deaths and the long-lasting effects of nuclear radiation. And so through my 4 years with CIF, I've realized that although we may come from different backgrounds, our past really doesn't define who we are. It's our journey to make a difference that does. And so I've recognized that it's my responsibility to spread awareness about this existential threat and become an agent for change. So currently, while I am majoring in computational biology at Stanford, I'm also minoring in public policy. And I'm actually taking a class right now titled The Future of Warfare, which is super relevant to everything nonproliferation. And so I'm trying to use my academic lens and working with young women in nonproliferation to continue advocating for nonproliferation at the college level. And I really hope to expand my reach over the next couple of years. So I'm really looking forward to answering any questions that you all might have today.
Thank you, Saloni, and to all the panelists for their very informative and motivating speeches. I would now like to move on to the Q&A round, and please feel free to jump right into the questions. So the first question is, what do you consider to be the most serious nuclear risk today? Do I see any hands among the panelists? Who would like to go first?
Chris?
Yes, Christopher.
No, I'd rather defer to Lucia.
I was going to say, I can't find the hand right now, but I was going to say a big one is the current tensions between Russia and Ukraine. I mean, it's pretty prevalent in everyone's mind, and the fact that P5 can just wield these kinds of nuclear threats without any actions being taken against them, or any concrete actions being able to be taken against them because of the power that they have is pretty disheartening. And it's definitely, I think, something that has to be addressed in terms of treaties, in terms of safeguards, and just in terms of setting boundaries in case this were to happen again in the future.
Christopher, please go ahead.
To bring it to a more civil society oriented lens, I'd say it's complacency. And the reason I say complacency is because two scenarios. When the January 6th riots occurred in Washington, D.C., then Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, claimed to have spoken with General Mark Milley of the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, if I'm not butchering that, my bad. And she said that there were guardrails in place to prevent then President Donald Trump from unilaterally launching a nuclear weapon. That's false. The US president has sole authority to launch a nuclear weapon without any challenge from his cabinet or the military chain of command. And to bring it to a 2023 context, we see what's happening around the world with China increasing its nuclear buildup, saber rattling in Eastern Europe. And civil society is seeing this on the news, but they're not really being driven to take action to it, at least in my opinion.
Thank you, Christopher. Would anybody else like to go next?
Okay, I will next. So I think that the relationship between between the nuclear security and also terrorists is one of the most dangerous issues. So currently, as a weapon development advances, but at the same time, like it makes easier for terrorist group to possible to make the build simpler nuclear weapons or like more like less budget. So with the development of the technology, if they have an internet access, they can also like hacking the security of the different like of the other countries. So I think that that kind of the terrorist issue is also one of the major problem in light of the nuclear security right now.
Thank you, Kokoro. Yes, Shunzi, please go ahead.
Yeah, speaking of a new type of nuclear weapons, correct me if I'm wrong. I may be outdated with this, but I read in articles that maybe Russia or the U.S. developing like smaller, easy to use nuclear weapons. Is that right? Like strategic nuclear weapons, or I forgot what's it called, but because the nuclear deterrence is big and states cannot use the real big nuclear weapons, they're kind of thinking to develop smaller ones that is easy to use. I was very shocked to read that, or to hear the news, because it shows that people think that it's okay to use nuclear weapons if it's smaller, but it still has the same radioactive functions and effects on people. So I thought that was a very big threat.
Thank you, Shunzi. Shizuka, please go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to second what Lucia said. I think the current tension between Russia and Ukraine, and as well as the risk of nuclear weapons use, is a very imminent issue that need to be addressed and need to be taken care of. And also, I would like to address the dialogue, the missing dialogue, and trust between countries, as well as between decision makers, must be addressed. And most importantly, what I wanted to raise on this regard is that the nuclear weapons non-use must be maintained. And this is the reason why I perceive that we should just keep our pressure on not anybody use nuclear weapons, because the use is not acceptable at all. And lastly, I think, to this end, I think the second wave from this risk that is happening right now is that fear is endorsing further armament. So now that we see somebody attacking somebody, and attack can happen anytime or anywhere, so we must prepare and we must ourselves. This is what I really perceive the threats raising, and the tension that I'm really concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Shizuka. Maybe we could take just one question from the audience. Very briefly, if you have any questions from the current panel, please drop them in the chat box. And after this, we'll move on to the joint panel. So any question from the audience to the alumni of the CIF, please drop them in the chat box and I'll take them up. I see a question from Dawson. Maybe we could keep it till later when we have a joint panel. But if you have any other questions, please let me know. Or maybe we can just move to the joint panel. So thank you so much, speakers, for your very apt responses. I now invite both the panels of the Critical Issues Forum for a Q&A session. Please feel free to raise your hand virtually or otherwise. And yeah, let's just jump right in. Dawson, would you like to go first?
Sure. So I was wondering, personally, I have interests that I feel are pulling me in so many different directions. Each of you shared what I felt was pretty similar to that with not only CIF, but your majors, career path, what you do professionally, and with activism. So I was wondering how you navigate working with those interests to be an advocate for nuclear disarmament.
Thank you, Dawson. Who would like to go first? Shizuka, yes.
Yeah, I think I can go. Oh, if Saloni, if you like to answer.
Go ahead, go first. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'll be just brief. Thank you for the question. I'm really happy that I got this question because last week I was talking with some CIF alumni who is not currently working on this issue right now. So a lot of my friends who were back in Hiroshima Jogakuin High School, they had an interest in this issue, but it's difficult to say, but they don't have interest anymore, or they don't have active engagement with this issue directly. But I was really happy talking with my friend, former CIF friend, because she's working at the TV station right now, and she's trying to make a documentary about nuclear issues right now because she kept her interest and she kept her passion inside, and then tried to look for what she can do, connecting what she has right now. So I think it's really important to keep thinking how to connect the dots, what you have and what you want to do. So I think it could be anything, painting or baking. In my case, I really like baking. So sometimes I connect how to baking and then nuclear issues. And some of them think business is a good way to approach this issue. So I think anything would be good and creative, and that's what make your path and approach very unique and meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you, Shizuka. Saloni, you're next.
Yeah, I think for me, my major, given that it's computational biology, is pretty unrelated to the field of nonproliferation. Like I'm taking classes in genetics and cellular molecular biology and cloud computing, which doesn't in our minds really correlate. But for me, having that minor in public policy and also like for a longer term career goal, I am considering possibly going into the field of medicine. And so there's something that I'm not sure if other panelists know called the Physicians for Social Responsibility. Yeah, okay, there we go. So they have a sector for nuclear abolition, which I'm a part of. And so it's really combining. I feel like any field that you're in, you can find a way to combine nonproliferation into that, and not even, even if you're like majoring in math or something, it's always important to pursue passions that you're interested in. And for me, throughout high school, with Masako's help and Dr. Nelson's help, I really realized how important nonproliferation is. So just because it's not something that you're studying doesn't mean you can't be passionate about it, and doesn't mean you can't pursue it outside of academics.
Thank you, Saloni. We have a question from Manon and Kanon. Thank you so much for your very inspiring education work. And it's indeed a very important question, that understanding that you all have faced many experiences advocating for nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. Have you ever faced any challenges, and how did you overcome them? Yes, Lucia.
I think a challenge I'm currently actually facing is in part of the consulting work that I'm doing for the EVN, the focus right now is on youth perspectives, which I think is great. But what I've been noticing in between focus groups and talking to experts in Latin America is that the perspectives of youth and the perspectives of older experts in the field are pretty varied. And so they seem to have not only different opinions, but also different priorities about what kinds of action should be taken, as well as kind of different mindsets of risks that should be, I guess, sought after. And so pulling together those perspectives and trying to figure out what an avenue of compromise is has been difficult, just because I know that older experts right now have a lot of the power. They have a lot of wisdom and knowledge to share as well. And they are in positions to get things done and to implement them. But I also think that a lot of the youth currently working towards getting to those positions have a set of risk-taking skills and just a lot of drive and newer ideas that could also be part of the process. And so I think that one of the challenges will be pulling those together and making sure that both sides feel heard, and kind of getting those skills and that knowledge from the youth, but also the experts, in order to get the best possible outcomes. I'm not sure whether it's been totally solved yet, or whether it will be totally solved in the foreseeable future and anytime soon, but I think part of the work that will go into it is a lot of these just conversations and awareness. And as long as we're able to have this kind of dialogue, then hopefully we'll be able to get to an agreement.
Thank you, Lucia. Would anybody else like to address these questions? Maybe in terms of engagement opportunities or work opportunities? Yes, Kokoro, please go ahead.
Sorry for you. So like I felt a big difference in the gap between what I learned in Japan and what I learned in US right now for the nuclear disarmament and nuclear issues. So what I learned in Japan was like we needed to abolish the nuclear weapons for the future. And also the nuclear weapon is evil, or like nuclear weapons cause a lot of like mass destruction. But what I learned in US is nuclear weapons exist, but we needed to reduce the the risk of the like misbombing or transfer to the another country or terrorism actor. So like the learning base is totally different in Japan and also the US. So that is one of the big challenges for me in like to continue the study of the nuclear issue. But I noticed that the people in US and also Japan have the same essence, like that we do not use the nuclear weapons against the human or environment. So like no matter like the race or the different educational background, we share the same like important element that we should not use a nuclear weapon again. So I think that I even feel the difference or like challenges between the different country, but I felt that the people would think the same thing toward the nuclear weapon. Yeah.
Thank you, Kokoro. Shunzi, you're next.
Yeah, thank you, Dawson, for the question. I think in your speech, you said you did a policy brief and also mural stuff. So I think you will do more amazing stuff going to the future. I'm very excited to hear from you. But I think the challenge I have is the sense of powerlessness. I think after going to college, I organized a nuclear disarmament club on campus. Organized two annual symposiums, invited even survivors to campus and also Toki to campus as well. It was great, and I'm still proud of it. But I think time to time I may feel that what I'm doing now is just creating a tiny drop in the ocean, and then the tide in the ocean is going against the direction that I hope. But I think I'm very happy to be able to come back to CIF as a panelist. It was very inspiring to see the many CIF alumni doing their best in their careers or academics, try to contribute to nuclear disarmament issues. So I think, 7 years later, if you're invited to be a panelist at CIF, I think you should say yes, you should go.
Thank you, Shunzi. We have another question. You mentioned that how this is just one aspect of the contribution to nuclear disarmament issues. So their question is, what is one factor of nuclear proliferation that is directly and greatly prohibiting nuclear disarmament? Yes, Lucia.
I mean, one that I think of, if I'm understanding the question right, is just the language in the NPT right now doesn't necessarily have a timeline for disarmament. And so which is what the TPNW addresses, and also the reason that there are so many countries that have yet to sign and ratify it. So I think a challenge that we are facing right now is trying to get those countries to sign the TPNW in order to actually have a strict timeline for disarmament, because the NPT stops nonproliferation, but doesn't necessarily mean that the countries that already have these weapons have to disarm.
Yes, Christopher, and then Saloni.
So piggybacking off of Lucia's statements, I had the privilege of attending the first meeting of states parties in Vienna last summer for the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Thanks for the explanation, Masako. And I do concur that it's where a lot of the experts in the field clash heads because of the way the NPT was made. It was, the way I interpret it, right, is these nuclear states just didn't want it to spread, like they didn't want these weapons to spread elsewhere, but surprise, they did. And these all started as high-level talks between governments with very little input from civil society. And the TPNW, what it does, and again, to my understanding, because I'm not a TPNW expert, I yield more towards the CTBT. The TPNW looks to find what can be considered as loopholes, legal, political, diplomatic loopholes that the NPT may or may not have addressed. And that includes the safeguards with the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, for preventing the misuse of nuclear technology for proliferation purposes. And government, the majority of the nuclear states, their governments, they don't really want to talk about the TPNW because to them, disarmament is already included in the NPT. That's my answer.
Thank you, Christopher. Saloni, you're next.
Yeah, I just wanted to have a really quick addendum. I completely agree with everything that Chris and Lucia have been saying, but I think also, as we mentioned earlier, with the Russia-Ukraine war, we're kind of going in the opposite direction, where non-nuclear weapon states are now wanting to pursue armament. And so I just wanted to throw that out there as like, we're like, with respect, with like the treaties are all incredibly important, but we're also kind of flipping in the opposite direction. And so it's important that we address the fact that non-nuclear weapon states are arming and see if there's a way to stop that as well from happening. So I just wanted to add that quickly.
Thank you, Saloni. Shizuka, you're next.
Yeah, if I may, maybe I can add one more point, maybe one more factor, what is preventing nuclear disarmament. In my opinion, I suppose that consensus-based order right now has been preventing nuclear disarmament a lot. And that is also why the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons arose. So what I'm saying is that in many disarmament platform that we have right now, like NPT and a Conference on Disarmament, and in many places, unless, so if anybody is against one idea, we cannot proceed to do anything. So this is what is hindering nuclear disarmament, that in my opinion. And this is how TPNW was formed through the UN General Assembly, but I don't want to go that far, but yeah, I think this is one of the factors.
Thank you, Shizuka. And thank you also, Kylie, for your question. We have another question from Aiden, who says, I was curious to know some of your thoughts on the intersectionality of nuclear non-proliferation and the implementation of nuclear energy, particularly in treaty.
Can I talk a little bit?
Please go ahead.
I am not sure if I understood this question correctly, especially the part particularly in treaty, but NPT has allows all state parties to have an inalienable right to use nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. So so the question was intersectionality of non-nuclear non-proliferation and the implementation of, okay. I don't know if I understood it correctly, but all countries are allowed to use nuclear energy for peaceful purposes under current treaty. However, there are some holes that country there are some disputes around that too. So I think there are some caveats in terms of implementation of nuclear energy. But for example, AUKUS agreement, if you AUKUS is an agreement between Australia, UK, and the US. that involves some nuclear submarines, and that is very big issue right now. But if you want to take a look at and want to have more question, I'm happy to go into that.
Yes, Lucia.
So this isn't directly related to the NPT, but I did find out today I had a focus group earlier with some members of Latin America and the Caribbean, and we were talking about this issue of nuclear energy because there's only about 5 countries in the region, in these like 33 countries that make up Latin America and the Caribbean that have nuclear energy. And that is not because the other countries cannot have it. It's because they all need to be in unanimous agreement and share the technology with these other countries. And so there's a lot of actually like behind the scenes diplomatic tensions at play where the countries that already have them, even though they're all within the same nuclear weapon-free zone, within the same region, they don't want other countries to have that technology, and so they won't share it. And this just goes back to trying to reduce those tensions between them. But I thought it was an interesting fact.
Thank you, Lucia. We'll just take one last question since we are running low on time. This question is from Luke and Dylan, who they were wondering what campaigns and initiatives you have encountered or worked with were most effective. How did they yield progress, particularly relating to policy action? And additionally, they also wanted to know if you all think that there are specific areas within non-proliferation studies that merit more specific attention than they are currently getting. Yes, Shunzi.
Yeah, I go first. Yeah, thank you for the question, Luke. I think you interviewed a bomb survivor, right? I think that, and then you said that was very inspiring. Yeah, I maybe not related to policy action, sorry, but I also I invited a bomb survivor to my college campus in Orange County, California. There are some, as you may know, maybe there are some bomb survivors who now live in the States. And maybe why don't you invite them to your campus or maybe a college, if a college. And in my case, that event was very successful, very high participation rate. Students said it was very inspirational. I didn't know that, blah, blah, blah. So I think now you have this nice experience through CIF. So I think you can do that to provide the similar experiences to your friends as well.
Yes, Christopher, please go ahead.
So speaking as someone who got started in, after CIF, I got much more involved on an activist and civil society level, grassroots level. Aside from turning my high school into a nuclear weapons-free zone, I also used that as an opportunity to launch my own conference in November of 2017 for the Southern California region on disarmament to bring awareness. That's something you can also do. You can do an event where you can talk to people, tell them what you know, share why you know this and why you care about it. In another instance, I had the opportunity to talk to Congressman, representative of the member of the House of Representatives, Adam B. Schiff, who is currently running for U.S. Senate. And I had the opportunity to lobby to him directly to co-sponsor the No First Use nuclear bill, which would limit the president's authority to launch a nuclear weapon. And that's an example of something that seems small, but has larger ramifications, because what happened in that meeting was it was myself and another student from my old high school who's still participating in the nuclear policy club. And we gave Congressman Schiff our experience in this policy space and our passion. And that was our first meeting with him. We've never done anything like that. And maybe it's a miracle, I don't know. He's like, all right, fine, put my name on it and make this public. And that's something that, even though No First Use hasn't done much, it really didn't get popular in DC, that's still something that shows to the people, at least in the US context, it shows the people that represent you that you care and that you know and that you want them to do something about it, even if it seems like a Herculean effort. The last thing before I can ramble on is I also, in an international context, it's finding other like-minded people or people with similar interests and linking up and seeing what you can come up with them. And I've had that experience through the CTPTO youth group, through EVN actually as well. And even friends who are members of the ICANN network. And you find your place, and sometimes it just feels like it's weird, but you just got to take a moment, pause, and realize, I think I'm in the right place at the right time. That's my spiel. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. And with that, I would like to wrap up today's panel discussion. Thank you once again to all the panelists for your very active participation, and I wish you best of luck for your future endeavors. Thank you. Over to you, Ms. Toki.
Thank you so much, Monalisa, for your excellent moderator. And also, thank you so much for both current CIF students and alumni. And I was just so inspired, impressed by all of you. And, you know, seeing alumni, CIF alumni, you know, working in the field of peace and security, or whichever field you have chosen, and for the betterment of their humanity. It's just the best thing I can experience. So thank you so much. And current students, and a few years or several years from now, maybe you are the one who will be now sharing the experience. And as many alumni mentioned, in this field, expanding a network, you know, deepening the network of good people, you know, people, like-minded people is extremely important. So please, you know, continue to reach out to, you know, like friends and like-minded people, and continue to work, because this issue is not going to end in my lifetime. We need young people like you. So this is a lifelong journey for everybody. So we definitely need people like you. So thank you so much. So now I'm very, very excited about to introduce the representatives from the Rock University High School in Janesville, Wisconsin. And Rock University High School has been a CIF project for over 10 years. So, and today, Clea and Anna are representing the entire Rock University High School, the CIF team. So I'm going to give you the floor to present your final project, Going Beyond the Bomb. Take it away, Clea and Anna.
All right, thank you, Masako. Rock University High School would like to present our 2022 to 2023 Critical Issues Forum project, Going Beyond the Bomb, a podcast where we discuss the harm of nuclear weapons and how we must find a way to live a life without them. Rock University High School is located on the Black Hawk Technical College Central Campus in Janesville, Wisconsin. We follow a middle college model where students can earn an associate's degree or credits towards a degree, along with a high school diploma. Our school has been part of the Critical Issues Forum for over 11 years. CIF is a standalone class in our curriculum that is optional from the 9th to 12th grade. CIF class meets twice a week for 75-minute time periods.
We chose to create podcasts for our media presentation because they're accessible and make complex topics like nuclear weapons, creation, usage, effects, and disarmament easier to understand. Not only is it a good format for the listeners, but it allows us to be more creative with the podcast, as such, the podcasts are a malleable form of media.
For our mini projects, we created 15 to 20-minute podcasts in groups of 2, and these serve as a general overview of the topic of nuclear weapons. For the first mini episode, speakers Anna and Claire delved into the science of nuclear weapons in order to gain background information on how they work. In the second episode, speakers Jaden and Zeph discussed how nuclear weapons have damaged the lives of so many people as well as the environment. In the third and final episode, speakers Amelia and Autumn go into what is currently happening in the world regarding nuclear weapons.
Our final project follows a similar format to our mini project. However, in these podcasts of Going Beyond the Bomb focus more on our interpretation of this year's Critical Issues Forum theme. We focus on the intersectionality of nuclear weapons and marginalized communities, specifically looking at U.S. nations and groups most affected by nuclear mining and testing.
The entire CIF team researched our 3 main topics and scripted out 3 episodes. Clara, Anna, and Zeph were our hosts of the podcast. Jaden was our sound and video editor, and Gab, Autumn, and Amelia worked on the slides of our final project presentation. Creating Going Beyond the Bomb was quite the task, but together we really made something we were proud of.
The first episode of Going Beyond the Bomb podcast focused on the Navajo Nation. Residing on the borders of Arizona, Utah, and New Mexico, the indigenous nation fell victim to the United States nuclear testing. This episode aims to inform the listeners about nuclear weapons' effect on the Navajo's culture, health, and economic impact. This is important to share because it's necessary to talk about all of the victims that were affected due to these nuclear weapons being made and used.
The second episode of Going Beyond the Bomb is based on the Western Shoshone people, an indigenous group in the Western United States. The purpose of this episode is to inform listeners about the culture of the Western Shoshone people and how they were impacted by nuclear testing and bombing. This is important to know because they are the most bombed nation on Earth. However, their story is not always told.
The third and final episode of Going Beyond the Bomb is about the Marshallese people in Oceania. We want our listeners to know the effects of nuclear weapons on Marshallese people and their culture, sharing the stories of unknown nuclear weapon use in the obscure country of the Marshall Islands. It's important to know how devastating nuclear weapons can be to indigenous cultures such as the Marshallese.
We can engage more high school students in nuclear disarmament activities by introducing major nuclear events, along with the stories of creating community-driven events and publishing information in a more engaging format. We must aim to present nuclear disarmament and nonproliferation in an intriguing yet digestible manner. This can be done through many mediums, such as interactive activities like the Critical Issues Forum Speaker Series, podcasts such as Going Beyond the Bomb, and through social media, whether on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, etc. Beyond just engagement, the stories of the Hibakusha of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, as well as the Navajo, Western Shoshone, and Marshallese must be told.
We can engage more high school students.
We can engage high school students.
We can engage high school.
We can engage high school students.
To engage with high school students.
By using social media, educating them in our schools, and educating them in their society.
Having a national holiday to honor Hibakusha.
Creating community-driven events to spread nuclear awareness.
And by introducing the topic at an earlier age,
we should make nuclear topics intriguing and digestible.
Spreading information via media where other teens are.
And creating information in a more engaging format.
Researching different petitions or collaborative organizations.
Use learning activities that take advantage of modern technology.
And relating to their interests. The RUHS Critical Issues Forum team would like to thank the Middlebury Institution of International Studies James Martin Center of Nuclear Nonproliferation, the wonderful Masako Toki and her graduate student team, and all the amazing individuals that make the Critical Issues Forum possible. A special thanks to our teachers, Erin Jensen and Stephanie Viorello. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Clea and Anna, for amazing presentation. And thank you to all the Rock University High School students and teachers, of course. And I also wanted to acknowledge that all the Critical Issues Forum participating schools made an amazing project. And we are posting all those links to the video presentation or artwork and the booklet, and we will be posting on the website. So please look forward to reviewing all those students' amazing work. Thank you so much. So now I would like to take a 10 minutes break. So we're gonna have so now 5:35. So could you please come back at 5:45 p.m. So 10 minutes from now, after the break, we are going to have an exciting keynote speech. So please make sure to come back on time, okay? Thank you so much. Okay, so everybody is back. Okay. Okay, now I'm so excited to introduce Dr. Togzhan Kassenova. Now you can find her introduction and the booklet. She's a world-leading expert in the field of nuclear policy, non-proliferation, strategic trade controls, financial crime prevention, among other things. And Dr. Togzhan Kassenova served on the United Nations Secretary General's Advisory Board on Disarmament Matters from 2011 to 2015. And Dr. Kassenova, Togzhan, is the author of The Atomic Steppe. I do have this book, Atomic Steppe, and how Kazakhstan gave up the bombs. And she is also a great friend of our center. She was a postdoctoral fellow at our center back in 2008. Am I correct? 2008?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
2008. By the way, I also have a mug cup of this book, so I wanted to show. Anyway, so highly recommended book. And so now I would like to, we are so excited to have Togzhan Kassenova for the Critical Issues Forum. And thank you so much, Togzhan. And her title, speech title is Continue the Legacy of Soviet Nuclear Tests in Kazakhstan. Thank you so much. So now stage is yours. Togzhan, take it away.
Thank you, Masako. Hello, everybody. It's so wonderful to be with you virtually today. I'm joining you from Washington, D.C. That's why it's so dark, because it's already close to 9 p.m. I'm really delighted to have a chance to interact with you. And I want to warn you that some parts of my presentation will be sad, but there will also be hopeful stories and also lessons in resilience. So I want to start with a story. A few years ago, when I went to the villages near the former Soviet nuclear testing site in Kazakhstan, one of the first families that I've met, there was a young mother, and she had a baby. The baby at the time was about 6 months old, and that baby had 6 fingers on one of his hands. And that baby was one of many children that are still suffering from the legacy of the Soviet nuclear tests. So with that, I want to tell you a little bit of a background of what happened and why now in Kazakhstan there is a 4th generation of victims of Soviet nuclear tests. So let me start sharing my screen. So in the late 1940s, the Soviet Union wanted to catch up with the United States and also have a nuclear bomb of its own. And they obviously needed some place to test the weapons that they would be building. And they chose Kazakhstan. They took land of a very sizable proportion, so that you understand better, the size of the nuclear testing site is the size of the entire state of Hawaii. And it was, very difficult for me when I was researching this topic for my book to read the documents from the Soviet period about, how the Soviet government, the Soviet military described the land that they chose. They described it with a lot of just in a very pragmatic way. They would talk about access to sand and water, construction material. They would describe it as a godforsaken land with no people, uninhabited, which was completely untrue, because there were actually many people who lived in that area. There were rural settlements and also a major city of Semipalatinsk not that far away. And if for the Soviet planners it was some kind of empty land with nothing of value, to Kazakhs, it was, a very treasured land with a very complex ecosystem. It wasn't only the steppe. It also has the mountains, the lakes, and very complex fauna and flora. And here I'm just showing one of the most special inhabitants of the steppe. It's an antelope, Saiga antelope, that they actually almost disappeared during the period of Soviet nuclear tests, but now they're coming back. It was also, a very special region because many famous Kazakh writers and poets and educators were born in that region. And so this entire region has a very special meaning for Kazakhstan. And so the Soviet military started testing in 1949, and they continued testing for 40 years. And they did so in the atmosphere of complete secrecy. They, for example, only in very rare cases, they would announce nuclear tests in advance. They would prohibit everybody to talk about it. They would prohibit the local doctors to give truthful diagnosis to people who were suffering from ionizing radiation. And basically if you remember one thing from my presentation, or take, one fact from that period, is that the Soviet military didn't care at all about the local people. And I just want to give you one little snapshot of this lack of care. So the episode that I'm going to describe is from 1955, just before a thermonuclear test. And it's a description from a medical nurse who said that on the eve of the test, the military came to our village and gave instructions. In the morning after breakfast, we walked all patients and put them face down on the ground and covered them with the bed linen. So you can imagine how horrible it is. First of all, linen doesn't protect at all from the fallout, but also just the insult, you're already vulnerable, you're in the hospital, and then you have to lie on the ground with your face down. And so many health issues started showing up very quickly within a few years. Cancers, blood diseases, all sorts of really difficult health issues, especially for children and women. Lots of children would be born with very visible physical defects, or with the Down syndrome, and so on. When Japanese and Kazakh scientists, already when Kazakhstan became independent, when they carried out their studies and compared responses from Hibakusha and people from the Semipalatinsk region, they found out that the experiences were very similar. The psychological impact, the nightmares or how people remembered or how they were traumatized were very similar. On this photo, if you look at the black and white photo, you might think that you are looking at a child, but this is actually a young woman. She was 16 at the time of when this photo was taken, and she just stopped growing. The other photo, you can see a person who was born this way, and so through his entire life, he had to depend on his mom as his main caregiver. And these are just two stories from thousands of stories like that. Every single family in that region has not one, but several tragedies that they can share. I want to give you 10 seconds to read one of the testimonies from a woman who lived near the nuclear testing site. And here is another recollection also from somebody I interviewed. I also heard stories how children, they would, obviously because nobody told them anything, they would be playing around, and sometimes they would come across disfigured animals, I don't know, with two heads or with a missing leg, and they wouldn't even understand why they were seeing those things. And so for a long time, for those of you who will later study politics or history, and once you start learning more about authoritarian countries and unfree societies, for a very long time, for 40 years, it seemed as though nothing could persuade or nothing would make the Soviet military stop nuclear experiments in Kazakhstan. But fortunately, due to a combination of different factors, not least because a new leader came to power in the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, and he allowed a little bit of freedom. And this also coincided with people in Kazakhstan feeling really fed up that their fate was decided by someone in Moscow. And so in 1989, in Kazakhstan, the world's largest anti-nuclear movement was born. And it was called Nevada Semipalatinsk, because on the logo, you can see it's in Russian, but it basically says anti-nuclear movement, Nevada Semipalatinsk. Why Nevada? Because anti-nuclear activists in Kazakhstan, they wanted to feel connected with the peace activists in the United States, those who were protesting against nuclear tests in the United States. And whenever those big rallies or protests would happen in Kazakhstan, many international participants would come from the United States, from Japan, lots of hibakusha would come, also peace activists from Russia and other places. And so it was a really wonderful movement because it showed both the fact that Kazakhs were regaining agency over their own land. It showed the power of the people, the power of civil society, and that, just regular people can make a huge difference. And it's also a very touching story because Kazakhs were very grateful to international peace activists who would teach them how to do civil disobedience, how not to get into too much trouble, but make their point. But if you read the memories of peace activists from the United States who would come to Kazakhstan and participate in those rallies, they would say, we were so inspired that those people, still part of the Soviet Union, living in an unfree society, that they were out there protesting. And I'll just briefly read a memory from Dan Yan, who was the president of Physicians for Social Responsibility. And he said, in a village, 2,000 or 3,000 people met us and mingled with us in a large field as dozens of their fellow villagers told the sad stories of Soviet downwinders. American downwinders and hibakusha from Japan told their stories as well. While the stories were tragic, the atmosphere was that of a great celebration. And if you read some other memories, they would say we found ourselves inspired, maybe a little proud to have stood by the side of these extraordinary people. So now I want to get us back to where I began and go back to my experiences of when I go to the villages near the former testing site in Kazakhstan. Here on the photo, you can see a family that I became friends with. And this family to me represents both the pain, but also resilience of Kazakh people. So this family, they originally had 6 daughters. One died at the age of 6. On the photo, you can see the 2 youngest daughters, and the one who is a little bit older. By the time I met her, she already went through 2 years of chemo because she had facial bone cancer. Thankfully, the cancer was treated, but she still has very serious health issues. And her younger daughter, her younger sister, if you look closely, you'll notice that on one of her hands, she's missing 4 fingers. And so this family is one of many representations that even now, decades after the last Soviet nuclear test in Kazakhstan, people and children are still carrying the pain, and they're still paying the price for nuclear tests, for nuclear weapons programs. But at the same time, why I say resilience, it's because this is a very good family. The girls, they study well in school, they're doing very well, they're very creative, they dance, and they're extremely active. The younger one is active on TikTok, actually. But yeah, sadly, the pain continues. And so I guess I just, what I want to leave you with a thought that now that I see and meet survivors of nuclear tests on a regular basis and know their stories, it's even harder for me to listen to politicians who discuss nuclear weapons as though it's something abstract, as though it has nothing to do with people on the ground, as though they're making somebody safe, and unfortunately the horrible price of those weapons is not mentioned in places like that, in New York, Geneva, or Paris. So what can you do as young people? If you are from the United States or Russia, you can educate yourself. You can be very, ready to share information maybe with your friends and family on how many weapons your country have, and you can start questioning, why does my country have these nuclear weapons? Is it fair that some countries have nuclear weapons and some don't? If you are from Japan, you can also ask questions, or maybe try to research, why is my government not in support of the nuclear weapons ban treaty, noting that our country, Japan, suffered so much from nuclear bombs? And all of you, no matter where you're from, you can seek information on what happened and continues to happen to those people whose land was used for nuclear tests. And then you can tell these stories to your classmates, to your friends, to your parents. And above all, I think the most important task that you might consider taking on is remembering that your opinions, your actions, they matter. As opinions and actions of people in Kazakhstan did when they were able to make the powerful Soviet government stop nuclear tests in Kazakhstan. So I'll stop here, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Wow, thank you so much, Togzhan. This is, as you said, very painful, but very important to understand this inhumane impact of the use of nuclear weapons, both testing and actual use. So I'm sure that there will be some questions from both, Japanese students, American students, and even if teachers have a question, please feel free to jump in. If you would like to, why don't you write a question on the chat box? Okay. Any question? Okay, I know. I'm sure that there will be more in a few minutes soon. But maybe while we are waiting for the question from students, so Togzhan, so these high school students, they have been really studying non-proliferation, disarmament issues. So they are, compared to other students, they know a lot of things about nuclear. But, perhaps I'm not sure, but perhaps for many students, maybe this is the first time for them to hear this story, like, nuclear testing victims related story in Kazakhstan. Do you have any, because it's so important to learn about victims, what kind of, suffering they have gone through. So do you have any, like, a recommendation on some educational materials to learn about the nuclear testing victims? Because I know the atomic in Japan, there are a lot of stories about hibakusha, but could you recommend some educational materials? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Masako. So a couple of names come to mind whose work I admire and that I find important on the issue of survivors of nuclear tests. One is an American professor who actually lives in Japan, Bo Jacobs, and he recently published a book called Global Hibakusha. So it's a book, but he also has a very good article which is called Military Conquistadores. And he just looks at the programs of nuclear testing through the colonialism lens, and he shows how similar nuclear powers were in their lack of care for the places where they conducted nuclear tests. Another author that I like, unfortunately, I forget his name. He's originally from Japan. His book is called Global Fallout. It's a book from Stanford University Press, and it's amazing. For shorter resources, I would recommend checking out the website of the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty Organization. There are some, nice graphics and videos that you can watch there. And also, I really like how young people now doing podcasts, and there are a couple of podcasts led by young people. One is called maybe Nuclear Survivors. I'll put a note in the chat on that. And another one is from Ksenia, and I will also put a link because I just cannot remember the names of the podcast.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I have one question from Canon and Manon. You want to ask directly? Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for the powerful and inspiring speech. What advice do you have for young people who are interested in a career, like pursuing a career in disarmament, and how can we make it impactful and contribution in this field? We'll start by saying that this field, can be difficult to work in because these are depressing topics or very challenging issues. And I'm speaking for myself. what really gives me hope, or what always makes me feel better, is when I interact with young people, because unlike people who are a little bit on the older side, young people have a can-do approach, and so they don't take the nuclear order as something given, right? They challenge it. It's I find it similar with the planet, with the climate change, with gun reform, that young people just feel that no, we don't have to accept the status quo. So I'm always really happy to hear when young people get interested in these issues. So at your stage, I think you're already doing such a right thing by enrolling in the school. You're doing your education. I would say that read up as much as you can, and from different sources, so that you read not only people you agree with, but you also listen or study those who you disagree with. For example, if you believe that disarmament is important, try to read somebody who is saying nuclear weapons are important, right? And so just educating yourself and preparing yourself for when you enter the field. I would say learning foreign languages would really come handy, because it's a very global, international field. So the more languages you speak, the easier it will be for you to interact with your peers from different countries. And once you get a little bit more advanced, maybe when you are in college, and you will be able to see whether you want to work for the government of your country, be a diplomat, or maybe you want to go to an NGO, or maybe you want to become a scholar. And then depending on that, your further education will also be a little bit, with a different band, because if you want to be a scholar, your approach will be different. If, for example, you decide to be an activist, or if you decide to go into government, you also have to be sure that that's something you can do, and that it's a little bit different than being in an NGO. So multi-stage approach.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I have another question from Amelia Sheridan from Rock University High School. Would you like to ask a question directly? Maria, are you here? Maybe I'm gonna read a question. So you've obviously done a lot in your career and had so many unique experiences. What is one thing you have heard over your career as stuck with you because it was so moving? Yeah.
I want to share with you a story of a high school teacher from Kazakhstan, from one of the villages near the former testing site. So it's, I've talked to him on several occasions, and every time he would tell me stories about his neighbors, classmates. And then not on my first meeting, but later on during one of our meetings, when we were discussing the problem of suicides, without changing his tone, he was talking about his classmates who committed suicide, died by suicide, and then without changing his tone, he continued and he said, "My son hanged himself when he was in the 9th grade." And that really, it really pierced my soul, because he did it in a very even way, without expressing too much emotion, but it was clear that there was so much pain inside. But why I'm bringing this, story here, because this person, he didn't give up. He had so much tragedy in his life, from parents to children and neighbors and so on. But he is the one who joined the anti-nuclear movement, or who to this day continues to collect data on diseases and passing of his fellow villagers. And to me, just, whenever I feel maybe disillusioned or that things are hard, I think of him, and I just think about how important it is not to give up. And, if every in their own way would be doing something important or useful, then I think we'll get somewhere. So that story and that person, they stay with me.
Wow. Thank you. That's so, painful, but thank you. So the next question is from Setsu Murozaki from Shibuya High School. Would you like to ask the question directly to Togzhan? Or okay.
Sensei, I'm sorry for making you confused, but maybe this question is from my school students, Soyo Tanida. Yeah, I'm sorry, I used her link with, the same passcode. So, let me introduce my student.
Okay.
Maybe Soyo, are you here?
Yeah. Can I ask a question?
Of course, of course.
Thank you. Thank you very much for telling us about your experience and how you felt regarding the nuclear testing in Kazakhstan. And I feel that the horror and harms that people in Kazakhstan are currently even now experiencing are not very well known compared to, for example, the Japanese atomic bombings. And I was wondering why it is the case and what we as a student can do in order to spread awareness on this issue.
Thank you so much for asking this question. I think the fact that it's not very well known is due to the fact that during the Soviet period, everything was secretive. And so a lot of information was suppressed. And even after the Soviet Union collapsed, in Kazakhstan, for example, when I work in the archives, I saw a lot of requests from the government of Kazakhstan to the government of Russia to provide Soviet period documents, and they didn't receive any documents because for Russia it's a secretive issue. And so even within Kazakhstan, people do not fully understand what happened and what are the consequences. They know maybe in general detail, but when I launched my book in Kazakhstan, a lot of people would be saying, we didn't know all these details. So it's not surprising that abroad, even, fewer people know. But I want to really express my gratitude to Japan, because a lot of Japanese scientists and a lot of technical assistance was given by Japan to Kazakhstan, because those at the, at that level, they felt that there is some connection, that scientists wanted to work together, for example, or there was some medical equipment provided by Japan to Kazakhstan. What you can do, I think, I would be so grateful if, for example, you decide, if not to read the entire book, but maybe, I also published shorter stories that are more about the people, and maybe they're more accessible to high school students, to read those stories, to share them, to try to educate yourselves. And I actually hope very much that my book will be translated into Japanese, because I think this story is a story that Japanese people would appreciate knowing.
Wow. Thank you, Togzhan. So I have another question from a high school student from Osaka Senior High School, Ryu Sato-kun. So can you ask question?
Okay, thank you for your wonderful presentation. And before asking my posted question, can I ask you one thing?
Yes.
And what makes people from generation to generation suffer from physical problems? Is it from surrounding environment was contaminated, or is from genetically problems or other things?
So, I'll preface by saying that I'm not a medical doctor and not a technical specialist on radiation. So, what I understand is more from the technical studies that I've read and what, those who know explain. It seems that there is definitely still contamination. There are hot spots in the immediate area where nuclear tests were conducted, but it seems that a lot of the territory is actually not that dangerous. So I don't think that the problems are from the current contamination. From what I understand from medical experts, it's more that, if, for example, a woman lived in the area during atmospheric tests, and then she was pregnant during this period, then certain issues happened to her baby, and then, that it's more chromosomal and genetic rather than from the immediate environment. But I should also add that in the region, why it's sometimes very hard to be precise in scientific terms, because there are also some other environmental problems, for example, mining of some metals, and so it appears as though it's more chromosomal, and there are some studies that confirm that the Kazakhstan Institute for Radiation Medicine and Ecology, for example, can confirm that the second and the third generation of exposed people, they have higher mortality rates, including higher cancer rates.
Thank you very much. And my question is, what support can we provide for people with health problems? Because there's a lot of sufferers, not only in Kazakhstan, but also in Japan. And I think it's difficult to support this problem because it's related to, as you said, genetic or chromosome problems. So what specifically can we support for these people?
Even though, some health issues can be so severe that you cannot fix them, because I've met people who are missing collarbones, right? If you're missing collarbones, it's not that you can attach them, right? Or if somebody is missing fingers, it's also not that, you can do something too practical. But there is a lot of support that these people can receive, socioeconomic support. For example, if they need to go to see doctors, be treated for overall health issues. And so while in some more severe cases, their disease cannot be fixed, they can be helped in many other ways. And what's promising, and you probably already discussed a lot, the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, and there are Articles 6 and 7 in this treaty that speak specifically about assistance to people who suffered from nuclear testing and nuclear use, and also rehabilitation of the territory. And there are working groups now who are discussing establishing an international fund, like trust. And so, if that's established, then support from different countries can feed through that trust.
Thank you for a sincere reply.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Togzhan. We still have a lot of questions, but due to some time constraints, we have to stop here. And maybe we could collect this question, and maybe if it's okay, maybe I could send it to you.
Yes,
but again, thank you so much. This is extremely important topic, and I really appreciate you shared your story, and I really look forward to having this book translated into Japanese as well.
So I hope so too. Thank you so much, Masako. I'll switch off my camera, but I'm going to post a few links into the chat before I leave.
Okay, thank you. Before you switch off your camera, now before we are going to have a group photos. Okay. So everybody, if you are in the position to take a group photo, to turn on your camera, please. And maybe you could you remove my remove spotlight, and it's gonna be the group photo. Okay. So everybody, if you are on the first page, please turn on your camera, and especially, so wave, thank you. Smile. Okay. Yeah, take as many photos as possible. Okay.
And also there are other pages. You'll go.
Right. We have so many pages. I know my capable graduate research assistants are taking a lot of photos. So, okay, are you able to take a photo? Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Togzhan. And also thank you everybody for asking a really insightful and great question. Thank you. Welcome back. Sorry, there was some little bit of chaos in a breakout session. It always happen, and I'm sorry if you were assigned to the group of one, maybe not the group of one. But anyway, so I know I got some questions about the how can we send answers to Harry. So until we close the breakout rooms, you cannot send it. So now is the time to send the answer to Harry. Okay, so if you answer the question. Okay, so I hope you had a really good time. And now we are getting closer to the end of this, like a conference, annual conference. So now it's a fun time, like an important time that we are going to have an award ceremony. And I just wanted to recognize each one of the project participating school is going to receive the certificate of completion. The school is going to receive the real certificate. I'm going to mail it after the conference, but today I will just show the slideshow. But I also wanted to mention that each one of the participating students is also receiving the individual electronic certificate. And on top of that, this became a kind of a tradition of the forum. But every year since 2016, Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs always designate critical issues forum participants as a youth communicator for a world free of nuclear weapons. And this year, we also applied and just received the certificate. So I will also send this certificate from the Japanese Foreign Ministry, the youth communicator certificate. Okay, so now let me share the screen to do the final segment of this conference. Okay, are you seeing my screen? Maybe not yet. Hold on, please. Let me share the share screen. Okay, are you seeing this certificate? Are you seeing my screen? Okay. Okay, so now I would like to start this award ceremony. So congratulations to everybody. So each school is going to receive the certificate. The first school is a Chot Rosemary Hall. Congratulations on your participation and the completion of the project. So please give, please give a virtual, applause or a real applause, whatever you would like to, okay? Congratulations. Okay, the next group is the Hacker School from San Jose, California. Congratulations on your excellent work on the Critical Issues Forum, and thank you for your hard work. Congratulations, Hacker School. Okay, the next, so Julia R. Masterman Laboratory and Demonstration School. So Masterman is the first-time participant, and we had many participants from the Masterman. So there are 5 schools, 5 groups from Masterman. So each group conducted their own research project. So we are going to give a certificate to each group. So Masterman Group 1, congratulations for your hard work. Congratulations. Okay, the Masterman Group 2, congratulations. The group Masterman is from Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. Okay, the Masterman Group 3, congratulations on your achievement. And the Masterman Group 4, congratulations. Okay, the Masterman Group 5, congratulations. Congratulations on all your hard work. Okay, so now we are moving to the Montreal High School, our neighbor, Montreal High School, Montreal, California. This year we have quite a big group from Montreal High School. Congratulations on all your accomplishment, and I understand that you continue to work on your project moving forward. So we are so excited, especially you are our neighbor. So I will continue to look forward communicating with your school. Congratulations. And Rock University High School, Janesville, Wisconsin. Congratulations on all the amazing work and all your hard work. Thank you so much. And especially Clea and Anna, thank you so much for doing the presentation today. Okay, and another new school, Westridge High School, Pasadena, California. Congratulations. And we are so happy to have you for the Critical Issues Forum. Congratulations. Okay, and another new school, University School of Nashville, Nashville, Tennessee. So this is our first time to have a school from Nashville, actually in Tennessee. So we are so happy to have your group. So congratulations on your accomplishment and hard work. And now we are moving to the Japanese school, Hiroshima Jogakuin Senior High School, Hiroshima, Japan. Congratulations. And Hiroshima Jogakuin is our original member of the Critical Issues Forum when we started the Japan, US, Japan, and Russian component of the Critical Issues Forum. So we are so happy to continue to work with the Hiroshima Jogakuin. So thank you so much. Congratulations. And yeah, congratulations, Kansai Soka Senior High School. Kansai Soka has been a part of CIF since 2016, and we are so happy to have you, of course, for our project. Congratulations on your accomplishment. Okay, and Kaisei High School, Tokyo, Japan. So Kaisei High School, I know one of the students is busy and couldn't join today, but they have been working so hard, and they became a part of CIF back in 2015. And we are looking forward to working with your school moving forward. So congratulations for your accomplishment. And Nagasaki Higashi High School, Nagasaki, Japan. Congratulations on your accomplishment and your hard work. And as one of participants' sister, actually elder sister, was also CIF participant back in 2017. So it's great to see this continuation. So congratulations, Nagasaki Higashi High School. And last but definitely not the least, Soka Senior High School, Tokyo, Japan. Congratulations on all your hard work and amazing work on for the Critical Issues Forum. We are so happy to engage Soka Senior High School for our Critical Issues Forum. So thank you so much for all of your hard work. Okay, so I'm just so happy to have all of you, and I really wanted to thank each one of you for all of amazing work and hard work. This has been, to some extent, challenging year. You know, we often say post-COVID era, but many schools have been still going through some uncertainties and some, re-entry shock. But I'm just already so inspired by hard work done by high school students and also dedicated teachers. Without teachers' support, this program is not going to be possible. So I really wanted to thank each one of you, hardworking, committed teachers. The role of educators is very important. Thank you so much. And I also wanted to thank our donors. I think Mr. and Mrs. Pattison have, I think they have already left, but having a support is so important for this program. And I also wanted to thank today's panelists, especially alumni, joining from very different time zones. So thank you so much. But meeting alumni is one of the best thing to do for me, and I continue to stay connected with all the CIF alumni. So once you join the CIF, you can never you can never leave. It's like a mafia, you are part of a Monterey mafia. So thank you for all of the hard work. And finally, I really wanted to give a big shout out to my graduate research assistant. They have been working so hard and helping me a lot. And our graduate research assistant, essential part of the Critical Issues Forum. So I really wanted to give a shout out to all our graduate research assistant. But my sincere appreciation, of course, goes to each one of you. So thank you so much. And I really look forward to working with each one of you moving forward, because this topic is more and more important. And unfortunately, the world situation is very unstable and the nuclear threat is increasing. So that's why we need people like you, educators and young people. So I just wanted to really thank everybody for continuing work for the nuclear disarmament education and continuing your interest in this topic. Thank you so much. Thank you. I will conclude this year's Critical Issues Forum Spring Conference. Thank you.